Welcome to the Iron Prescription podcast with your hosts, Doctors Lynette and Stuart. We're both GPs and we're both personal trainers, though we do both jobs in very different ways. We chat about the best things you can do for your health and fitness, and along the way, help you to avoid wasting time on the things that really aren't. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, okay.
So, we're here, session number 1.
Well, we both know that's not the truth, but carry on.
Technical issues aside, but we should start with a mutual introduction of who we are, why we're here, and I suppose a little bit about the path to getting here. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go. Right. Hi, I'm Stuart Maiden-Ib. I am a personal trainer and I specialise in helping people with endurance sports mainly and looking at performance in all sorts of areas of life, being able to be functionally fit, regardless of where they've come from. So this might be somebody who is coming from absolutely nothing and wanting to do an Ironman challenge, or it may be somebody going on an expedition who wants to climb, I don't know, Kilimanjaro and needs specific personal training to help them achieve that goal. But in the background, they've also got medical issues that have been from chronic illness or from acute illness or from a disease process that is ongoing, either be cancer, arthritis, etc., etc. And the reason I can do that is because I'm a medical doctor as well. I've got an honorary chair at the University of Central Lancashire, but I specialise in general practice and remote and hostile medicine. So my clients from a PT perspective aren't my patients, they're my clients, but I use that medical knowledge to enhance the personal training that they get that's specific to their medical needs as well.
And this is exactly where our crossover sits and why we thought this would be interesting to have discussions on many different topics, because we both have a foot in both spaces.
Yeah.
And I'm also a medical doctor with a few years on the clock now. But through my own journey of self-improvement with strength, with weight training, discovering how life-changing it can be, I wanted to bring that to some of my patients who I felt needed strength and fitness more than they needed more pills, and not really having anywhere to be able to send them, and trying to send them to places that in my naivety I thought would be able to bring this to them, and then realizing that the results were pretty disappointing. Not least because what I see as medical side issues tend to end up being enormous barriers unnecessarily when they're in other sectors. So my own journey was, I felt I'm going to have to become that coach if I want these people to get the benefits that I know that they can achieve. And I'd say that I'm achieving that in my coaching practice now. Like you, some of my clients have got medical issues, not all of them, but every one of them gets to benefit from my medical experience, I would say, because I can't separate myself from what I've done for 20 years.
Yeah.
And people are people, and their health is their health, and it's very difficult to separate out, to put things into different boxes, I would say, even though medicine has become very segmented now and so super specialized that it's almost that nobody can see the whole person anymore, and actually we're missing the wood for the trees a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, why do we do this? And why fitness? Why strength work? Why any of this? And for me, the reason is because actually, if I could bottle it and put it into a pill, what I do with clients in the gym and the outcomes, and I could get that into a tablet, then you and I would not be having this conversation, because we would be very, very rich. Because the research shows that when you do exercise, that the power of that exercise on the impact of the health of the individual doing it is off the scale compared to modern medicine and the drugs that we have. Don't get me wrong, the drugs do work. Clearly they work, and they've definitely got their space. But to put it into context, if you do exercise and you're doing other bad things in your life, really, really bad things, exercise will still compensate to some degree and decrease your morbidity, and your length of life will increase. So if you're a smoker and you do exercise, you are going to live longer than somebody who just smokes. And I'm not saying everyone should start smoking or anything like that, ridiculous. But what I'm saying is that exercise is so powerful that it can actually go up against things like smoking. And we haven't got anything like that really in
Yeah.
medicine that has that impact and bang for buck. It's incredible. It makes a huge difference. And when you take a client on that journey, it's amazing to watch them. And
Yeah.
the side effect profile of exercise is a positive side effect as opposed to some of the things that we have to deal with when we prescribe medicine.
It's almost 100% positive, I would say,
Yeah,
aside from the odd injury. But I see more injured people who aren't fit than I see fit people sustain injuries from exercise. But I just wanted to pick up on something that came to my mind there, in that as I've been trying to juggle these two worlds and make them both fit in, I have to keep coming back to, what is it about coaching that I love? And as a day to day GP, you're helping people sometimes by managing their chronic disease. And a lot of that is centered in prevention. But you very rarely get somebody come back in the clinic and say, oh, I feel so much better now that my cholesterol is. So you're doing a lot of these things which we have to trust are contributing to prevention, but it rarely gives you that feeling of I've helped somebody. Occasionally it happens, and you probably get more of this because your day job is much more acute and
yeah,
urgent, and there are probably people who immediately feel better. I mean, I might treat somebody who's acutely breathless or got a raging infection and follow them up a week later and they go, oh, thank goodness I came, I feel much better. And that's nice. We like that feeling that tells us we're doing a good job. In my coaching practice, I only have to work with somebody for a couple of weeks before they'll start to say to me, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much better I feel already. In fact, I've just finished a 2-week free workshop and I got people to practice one activity most days for that 2 weeks. And they could pick from something simple like a push up or a wall sit. And within a few days, people were saying how much better they felt. And that's the bit that makes you want to come back and do it even
absolutely.
more. But I don't get that so much now as medicine has become more bureaucratic. Maybe don't want to
Yeah,
do down on the day job, because it's still very much who I am and
yeah,
part of what I do. But I'm sure you've probably found the same, especially if you're taking on total beginners who are training for
yes.
big events.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I absolutely love the impact that you have, and it's so quick, and the feedback is so great. I mean, if you give somebody a tablet, we normally say come back in a month,
Mm.
and in a month's time, what we're asking them is not really has the tablet worked, but are you able to tolerate the side
Yeah,
effects going forward?
yeah.
If I get somebody on an exercise regime and I say, right, do this for 14 days, like you said, they will come back and they will tell me how they've improved in that 14 days alone. They're feeling better. But not only that, what I've asked them to do has got better. So that press up is a perfect
Mm.
example. You do press ups for 14 days and you start with one
Mm.
on day one. By day 14, if you are doing two, it's 100% improvement.
True. Yeah. Mm.
Actually, it won't be two, it will be far more than two. So the progression in fitness is almost, the line is almost vertical. And of course, as you get higher to the top and you're starting to get to Paris, then obviously the marginal gains changes, and that's a completely different world.
Yeah.
And I'm not operating in that world. I'm on the real start of that line where it's vertical, and therefore the enjoyment and the benefits is so dramatic. I've rarely have had patients come back to me and say, give me more tablets. But I always get clients saying, give me more exercise regimes, and they're really enjoying it.
Well, there's a small section of people who come back for more tablets, but they're particular types of tablets, and they're usually the ones we have to turn down. But I completely agree. We all have to work within a zone where we get fulfillment, and that working out what that is in your job that gives you that fulfillment, so that you're not
Mm,
just showing up and going through the motions on a Monday morning. I do a lot of reflection on that and working it out. And it really comes down to what I see as being the same set of skills but using a different toolkit in different
absolutely.
worlds. And I see
Yeah.
a lot of people who will come to a doctor for help with things that I think, it's not actually a doctor that you need. It's a trainer, it's a coach. And it
Mm,
may be a life coach because they're wrapped up in stress and anxiety. I still think that exercise has a significant role for taking people to a different place. It's probably a conversation for another day. But we have fallen into this space where we expect or would like pills to fix everything. And I think if you've been in pain and somebody's given you something to immediately relieve that pain, say acutely, it's very easy then to assume that all pills have got that power.
Hmm.
And in my experience, the reality is most of them are disappointing. When you start talking about chronic pain, somebody who's managing arthritis and maybe thinking they need surgery, or maybe they've been told it's in the distance, but they're not ready yet, it becomes quite a grind to
Yeah.
manage that pain. And this is an interesting space as well, where I think there's really good evidence for exercise, for prehab, which is something I'm wedded to as well, building muscle ahead of surgery for all the many reasons as to why that can benefit your recovery. But it's difficult if people are already in pain. And again, you have to adjust. This is where I found services to be limited, because they'll see somebody who's in pain. And if you're not experienced of working with people and understanding pain and not being fearful of it, you end up feeling like you can't help that individual, when sadly, if you're just willing to be flexible and patient and
Yeah.
adjust the exercise prescription, adjust the dose, there's a dose for everybody if
Yeah.
you're willing to be patient and just adjust it. But that's quite a tricky sell sometimes in a 10-minute appointment, when somebody's struggled to get in maybe, or struggled to get out of the
Yeah.
car because a hip
Yeah.
or a knee is going. So it takes time, and it takes trust. And I think people are perhaps more inclined to trust you if you live that life yourself, if you've
Yes.
worked with people. And I think if you've seen that work for other people, I think most of my confidence now comes in that I know this works. I've worked with people,
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
seen it make a difference. So I have absolutely no hesitation in saying, this is going to help you. You just need to trust me. And maybe, 10 years ago, I perhaps wouldn't have had that same confidence.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting the things you're just saying there, and picking up on one of those is medicine has up until fairly recently been the deliverer of the message of, well, actually you need to change your lifestyle and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and if you've got pain, don't do that
Mm,
because it aggravates the pain. So if you've got
mm,
pain in your knees, maybe you should rest more, etc., etc. And actually, all the research says don't do that.
mm,
I actually do the complete opposite.
mm,
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a way that we're going to mobilize that joint and keep it going and build muscle up around it and increase flexibility to decrease the pain,
mm,
rather than sit still, take these tablets. And the tablets do take away the pain acutely, as you said.
mm,
And what I sometimes like to do is work in harmony with those and say, okay, well, let's take the tablets as well from the GP because clearly they're
mm,
needed. But during that period of time that we've got down regulation of that pain impulse, let's work to support that part of the body to decrease the chronic pain that you're going to suffer before
mm,
surgery,
mm,
etc. And also, as you said, the prehab to ensure that actually when you have the surgery, it's the best outcome you can have and you're back on your feet and moving straight away afterwards. And
mm,
that's such an important part
mm.
of medicine.
Yeah, and I think certainly when we're in doctor role, there's more trust on the table to begin with. The fact that you're in that role and people have come to see you, they're more likely to take that. But I sometimes will explain to people how we are, of course, wired to avoid pain. It's been a very well tuned survival evolutionary mechanism for millennia. But that changes when you get into ongoing pain. Interestingly, I'm just reminded of a patient that contacted the surgery a couple of weeks ago from Spain. The message was, my back has gone, I'm in Spain and I'm due to fly back tomorrow. Please could you make arrangements for me to see a spine surgeon privately next week? And I thought, I'm just going to send him an amazing video that I send to people who contact me about acute back pain by a trainer who's in America. He's got a really big YouTube channel. And the title is, My Back's Gone, What Do I Do Now? It's a
Yeah,
brilliant video, I thought. I was able to text him from the surgery. And I
yeah,
left him the option to reply. And I said, before you do anything else, because he'd said in the message he'd seen the doctor there who'd loaded him up with an injection and some painkillers ready for the flight home. And I said, just watch this. And what's in that video is the need to keep moving. If you injure yourself and you hear something pop, that's the classic thing people will say, I
yeah,
hear something pop. And the video explains why. And the guy whose video it is coached by a fellow doctor. who's into barbell medicine. Anyway, he messaged back and said, that was incredible. Every instinct was telling me not to move, to keep still. And this video gave him the reassurance. Now, I don't know how he is and how he got home, but I said, my advice to you is see how you are when you get back before you go running off to the spinal
Yeah.
surgeon, because the chances are he's not going to be interested in anything acutely. It was very satisfying.
There's a really good guy online. He's a physio, and he's very much into weight training. And
Is it Adam Meekins?
yes,
Yes.
there's a fantastic video of him, of his back going
Yes.
during a deadlift, and then he responds to that, so with people saying, "Oh, there you go. You see, deadlifts are bad for you," and he's back in the gym almost within sort of there's the acute phase of pain, which he's really struggling with. It's keeping him up at night. But very quickly, he's back in the gym, and people are going, "Oh, watch this! This will just destroy his back." And of course, it doesn't. And very quickly, within a matter of time, he's back to deadlifting where he was before. And actually, like you said, we'll all have injuries, but the point is, it's not bad for you. If you, for example, if you went for a walk to the shops and you happened to stand on a stone and you twisted your ankle, you wouldn't stop walking, would you?
Remove all stones from the earth.
Remove. I will stay at home and I will put my feet up.
Yeah.
It's just part of life, and that's the same with exercise.
Yeah.
But what we know is that continuing that exercise is really good.
Yeah. And the majority of people I see with that type of back injury haven't done it in the gym. They've usually been getting the lawnmower out of the shed or getting something out of the boot of a car and have twisted under a load. I remember seeing a guy in surgery who'd had back surgery and he was recovering. He hadn't gone back to work yet. Came in with his baby in the baby carrier for a baby check. Oh, yeah, it's all good so far. And I watched him twist to pick that baby carrier up and his back went right in front of me. And I just thought, oh my goodness, he's not even got back to work yet. And this is the reality of it. And I use these examples when I talk to people about, from my side of coaching, you need this weight training to equip you for life, to stay in the game, because no amount of medicine, I wish it was that good that we could just all take a pill, but it isn't. And if you want to stay in the game and be functional, as you say, for as long as possible and shorten that gap of chronic disease and disability to the shortest interval possible, hopefully right at the very end of life, then you have to train for that. And it doesn't make you, it's almost magic, but it's not quite.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't make you immune to absolutely everything that can come along, but it really goes a long way, and it goes much further than just crossing your fingers and hoping that walking the dog is enough.
Indeed. And I mean, what you're referring to there, of course, is functional fitness. You're using the stuff that happens in the gym to prepare you for life. And I love functional fitness. And that's what I do a lot with my clients that want to go off and do something specific. Whether that be a sporting exercise, a competition or an event, or whether it be an adventure in life. I mean, I train quite a few people for Ironman. Ironman is a triathlon. The full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then a full marathon thereafter. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I believe you have history with those events yourself.
Yes,
is that right? I don't.
I say, and I've said this to you before, and you always look at me like I'm psychiatric. I need a psychiatric referral or something. But I can take anybody with zero training to a full Ironman in 12 months. But when people go, gosh, how much will I be swimming by? How much will I have to swim? Well, you're going to have to swim. How much will I be on the bike? Well, you'll be on the bike and running. Yeah, you're going to have to run. But then you're also going to have to do strength work, and you're going to have to lift weights, and you're going to have to be on the rower and the ski erg, and you're going to have to do all these other exercises. And they're like, no, I'm doing a triathlon, so I'm going to swim, bike, and run. Well, you can, but I promise you, if you just do that, you're going to end up with injuries, and you're not going to enjoy it, and your performance isn't going to be as good. Because what we want is an athlete on that start line, and I use the word athlete like I do with all of my clients, because I think if you're stepping onto the line of anything that involves sport, you deserve the right to be called an athlete. You may not be an Olympic athlete, but you are an athlete. But when you step onto that line, you need to be functionally fit to do what you're going to do. And that is an overall fitness in the body, including your ability to move, your ability to lift, your ability to deal with load and to deal with stress on the body for a period of time. And that's exactly what this all-round functional fitness gives you. So whether or not you're doing an Ironman, or you're going to get the lawnmower out the shed,
Mm,
or you're going to go and do the shopping at Christmas and carry 15 shopping bags instead of two that you would normally,
mm.
that's what I am really interested in delivering, that feeling of, okay, I can do this and I can do it safely and it's not going to have an impact on me.
And for somebody who might be listening to this and thinking, yeah, but why would somebody want to do that kind of event? Who are these people? Because if somebody came to me and said, could you coach me for a major endurance event? I would have to spend quite a bit of time understanding their why. Because to me, they're in a different bracket to the type of people that I coach. So give me an example of one of these people.
Okay, so I would say, I would challenge you and say, when you say they're not your clients, I would say they are your clients, but what they've got is a mindset of I can't. So when you talk to most people about an Ironman, they go, oh, I can do that. And straight away I'll say, well, I guarantee you can, unless you've got a major illness
Mm,
or a major disability. And even if you have, then I'm pretty good. I give it a go. So the vast majority are non-believers. I can't do this. And then you get the people that go, they've heard that they possibly can, and they come to you and they say, is it possible? And you go, yes, it is possible. And they're doing it as part of a almost the beginning of their fitness world. So they're quite young and quite up for a challenge. They think this is the ultimate challenge.
mm,
And I have to warn them, that whatever you put in your mind to say, right, I'm going to do this, this is my goal, this is it. When you get to your goal, it won't be enough. There'll be something else that you want to do. Or it's people of our sort of age who have not done something for a long period of time and they need a little bit of incentive. They need a vision in the future to keep them going. And they
okay.
want something that's going to give them a little bit of fear.
Mm,
If you say I'm going to do 5K, that's great. And to some people, that's a huge challenge. Um, but it's not a big enough challenge. Sometimes people want to feel like if I say to the world, I'm going to do a half Ironman, I've really got to do something.
mm.
I've got to change my life to be able to
Okay.
achieve that. And they're right. They have got to change their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but it is completely possible. And they think they're going to have to become a world-class athlete and they're going to have to train 7 days a week, 6 hours a day, and that's just not true.
Mm,
You are going to have to commit to more than 3 times a week, but you're not going to have to actually do much more than that in a normal life to do something like a half Ironman. So it's
mm,
actually the sort of people that can do this and that are coming to me are everybody. I have all sorts walk through the door. I have people that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. I have people that are in their late teens, 20s, and 30s. The vast majority of them are coming through completely naive to a ultra endurance sport, but they may have done something else in the background and think, "Oh, I wish I could do that." And it's
mm,
that yes, you can.
mm. That's interesting. Okay. Because I wouldn't necessarily think you can't do it. It's more, why do you want to? That's always the
Yeah,
bit that fascinates me. And I guess I start with any new client with the same issue. What's your why? Sit and do the
yeah,
5 whys so that when you're losing motivation and other stuff seems more important or you're bored, you've got it pinned up on the fridge door as to why you are doing this. And given that the majority of the people I work with, mostly women, and they're mostly in the second half of life, they've started to feel their age or changes in their body that they're not happy with. So there's not really any major outliers in that in terms of why they've come to me, and it's quite easy to work with that. If somebody said, "Yeah, but I want to do an Ironman, be it in 4 or 5 years' time," I'd be really curious as to okay, do you realize how much of your life you're going to have to trade off that? And that's what would stop me. I would love to be able to do a double body weight deadlift, and I'm not that far off it, but I'm in no doubt about how much I would have to move stuff out of the way of my life to be able to get that last little bit on the bar. So their reason would have to be really compelling for me to think, okay, this is worth doing. But maybe I'm not supportive enough. I don't know. Perhaps there's a
Well,
flaw in
so
my coaching there.
yeah, so I think you're confusing the two aspects. So to do a double weight deadlift, you're right at the very top of the performance curve. When you look at moving weights
Mm,
and you look at how much people can move weights as a population, doing a double weight body deadlift is right at the top. So you're talking about marginal gain.
mm,
Now, if somebody comes to me and they say, I want to do a full Ironman in sub 10 hours, normally you have a 17-hour cutoff. If they want to go sub 10, world record is 7:30.
right.
So, sub 10 is
It's up there.
is quick.
Mm.
Now, that is the same as somebody saying to me, I want to do a double body weight deadlift. That's a marginal gain. So you don't come to me and say, on my first Ironman, I'd like to go sub 10.
Mm,
I do. Um, I would argue you probably don't need me if you're just coming in and saying that.
mm,
You need to be sponsored by somebody if that's your natural
mm.
ability. But the majority of my clients just go, I just want to cross the line and
Right.
I want to have a medal around my neck. Now, to do that, it's a bit like somebody coming to you and saying, I could never lift, look at me. I
Mm,
couldn't lift my body weight.
mm.
I just couldn't do it. And you look at them and you go,
You can. Mm.
it can actually quite easily,
Mm.
and that's the difference. That's the difference in the why. So when people say to me, "I want to do an Ironman," I don't go, "Well, in 5 years, 10 years." Then I go 12 months and know that I can get it into that 12 months. It's going to, I mean, a full Ironman in that 12 months is going to be a commitment in your life, but it's not going to be, like I say, it's not going to be a professional sport. But if they said, I want to do sub 10, right, we need to talk about whether or not you can leave your job.
Yeah. Yeah. Get
So,
a divorce.
yeah, and it's not this year, and it's not next year. It's we're doing this in, we're looking 3, 4, 5 years,
Okay.
maybe to get you
Yeah.
to that point. So don't see it as a altogether. It's exactly the same as your world with lifting. There is a marginal gain, and those marginal gains take a huge amount of time to achieve and a huge amount of effort. But actually, this curve down the bottom, this almost vertical performance curve that we talk about for the beginners, is great, and it's a great place to work in.
Mm.
Working with and I do have clients that are at the marginal gain and right at the very top, and they want to cut off seconds off a
Mm.
time. Oh, they're hard
Yeah.
work.
I can well imagine. Yeah.
Because there's so much effort required,
Mm.
and it has to be so perfect. And the other thing is that you're training them for a moment in time,
Mm. Mm.
specific moment in time, because they can't hold that
Mm.
minimal performance
Yeah.
for the whole year. You are training them for a day,
Yeah.
a specific day. Whereas when I take somebody at the bottom, you're training them to be overall really fit,
Yeah.
and to be able to be functionally fit for that event.
Yeah. And I think there's parallels there between when I take on somebody new who's set on being a certain weight. And I
Oh,
will often spend a bit of time saying, get them going, but don't overly focus on how you think you'll feel when you get to that weight on the scale,
yeah.
because in reality, you're going to feel much better than you do now, long before that. And if you
Mm.
do get there, which is achievable, it will be fairly fleeting because along
Yes.
the way, new things will crop up. The goalposts always move, and it doesn't feel like you imagine it's going to feel. And I've never been proven wrong yet in terms of that. And maybe that's the same for lifting a certain weight. I'm always curious about bodybuilders, not because I want to be a bodybuilder and I don't train like a bodybuilder, but in terms of they are the masters of being able to control their diet to the nth degree for a certain look to stand on stage for what is, like you say, a moment in time, and it's not sustainable. And so this idea that it's going to bring never-ending happiness when you look a certain way, they're the proof that
Yes.
actually it doesn't really get there. And I think explaining that to people along the way, when they've got all these barriers to starting exercising and they're throwing out these reasons, and this is more in the surgery setting when people start throwing things at you because you're starting to make noise about, have you thought about maybe you could fit this in here? Oh, but I'm busy with the kids and I'm busy with job. And people are, I'm not, I don't minimize that. People, particularly women, I find in that life stage, have got plates spinning all over the place. So you're looking for the little windows that you can fit something in, however small. I think sometimes the small benefits get overlooked because you think, well, it's not worth it. Unless I can go to the gym and do an hour, it's not worth going. And I think sometimes having a coach who writes your program, and I'll say to people, if you've only got 20 minutes twice a week, I'll write you a program for 20 minutes twice a week. Because
Yeah.
once you start feeling that sense of accomplishment rather than, oh, well, I'm not doing enough, all you have to do is follow what's on your program and show up. And that feeling of confidence builds into, oh, okay, I can now build on this rather than, well, it's not worth doing if it's 20 minutes a week. And I'd say probably 10, 15 years ago, that would have been me. Well, it's just not worth doing if I'm not going to do it properly because, it's like the throwing your diet away by the end of Monday and I'll start again next Monday rather than going, okay, it was just a bad day and I'll start again tomorrow. So I think tackling the why and getting people into the habit is so much more valuable than anything you're going to see on the scale or in your training log in those first couple of weeks, because building the habit is really the biggest challenge to be getting going with, especially if, like my clients who maybe haven't got a specific goal, they just know they've got to do something,
Yeah.
and they're not bound by a deadline other than me checking in with them to make sure that they've done it. So laying down those habits, those foundations are really, really important. And habits, I mean, that's a topic for a whole other conversation,
It is.
really, because we are creatures of habit. We're hardwired to be creatures of habit.
Yes.
So it takes a little bit of time and practice.
I think it's really interesting that, the points that you raised there about people not having enough time. I always struggle with that concept because people seem to think, as you say, that I've got to go to the gym. I've got to do an hour in the gym. And that's that we've got this. I don't know where we've got it from, but an hour in the gym is seen to be the way forward.
Yeah.
I've got to go to the gym. I've got to get my stuff. And actually that's 2 hours
Mm.
because you've got to drive to the gym.
Yeah.
You've got to get in the gym. You've got to do the stuff. Then, of course, there's the absolute must-have sauna afterwards. And then there's the get the shower. Then you've got to have coffee afterwards and reward yourself with a sticky bun. And, so that's 2 hours of their life. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. I just can't do that. You're right. You can't do that. Now, if I said to you, right, okay, I need you to eat 1,800 calories a day. And that's the goal. And I want you to eat 1,800 calories a day in a 2-hour window. And I want you to sit down and I just want you to eat 100 calories in that 2-hour window. No other time, just that. But I don't normally do that. I normally have three meals a day. That's exactly the same as exercise. Get rid of this, you've got 24 hours in the day. Get rid of this. You do everything else separated. So why do exercise non-separated? If you do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunchtime, and 10 minutes in the evening, it's 30 minutes a day. And you've hardly noticed it because it was only 10 minutes. And the impact over the week is huge. By the time you get to, you've got 3.5 hours by the end of the week. But if I said to you, you've got to go to the gym for 3.5 hours, you're like, I haven't got the time.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes, 3 times a day, suddenly, we've all got that time. The one thing we can't do is we can't buy time. But it's interesting when clients say, I haven't got the time. And you say, right, okay, talk me through your day.
Oh, yeah.
Procrastination is a huge amount of time people they'll spend 10 minutes talking about why they can't do 10 minutes of exercise. They've procrastinated for 10 minutes while they can't do what they should have done in those 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting psychology of why we are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And we've got to break that the other way round of, I can't miss my 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I need to do my 10 minutes and change that mindset.
Yeah, and I often will get people to pay attention to the couple of minutes that the kettle's boiling or the 5 minutes on the microwave, especially when it's people who are waiting for surgery and do spend a lot of time not doing stuff. Demonstrate a little squat that you could do, or a sit to stand to a chair. Right, we'll just get 10 of those in every time you boil the kettle. And it just opens up. You kind of see people go, okay, well, yeah, I can do that. Giving people something achievable to work on can be incredibly empowering. I find it really does make a difference.
The squat thing is really interesting. So I use that with clients at the beginning of their journey because it's a measurable, quantifiable thing to do. How many squats can you do in 2 minutes? And then you look at the data. So you take them into the gym and they turn up with all the great gear that they've bought and all their new Gymshark gear. Nice stuff. If Gymshark want to sponsor us on this podcast. If
We're too old.
well, they need to break into the market. But I get them to do a 2-minute test,
Mm,
and I say, right, okay, and then I show them the research about how many squats you could do in 2 minutes, and how that correlates directly to mortality,
mm,
your
mm,
expected endpoint, your age of death. Send them away, and then they get them to do, like you say, in the
mm,
kitchen, they're doing squats.
mm,
While they're waiting for something to cook, they're doing squats. While they're waiting for the bath to run, they're doing
mm,
squats. Even when they're in the bathroom brushing their teeth, they're doing squats.
mm,
And then I bring them back 4 weeks later, and we do the test again. They've not been to a gym.
mm,
Since they did the first test, they've been nowhere near a gym. They come back, and suddenly they've increased their life expectancy, and
mm,
they've not been to a gym. And I'm
mm,
like, yeah, well, there you go. That's the impact of exercise,
mm.
because of what you've done. You've trained your body in life to be functionally fit, and therefore you've decreased your chances of dying. And it's a huge empower to people, because they go, I can understand the numbers. When you say your age expectancy is this, 4 weeks later, I've changed it.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you don't feel like you've done anything because
yeah,
you haven't been to the gym is a huge.
yeah. I had a catch up with a client this week who's only been working with me from April. And because I see her at the studio, we were able to do the full body composition analysis.
Yeah.
She's 63. She had a life-changing car accident 2 years ago, and she actually came to me for some back rehab initially. So it wasn't a strength program. She was trying everything quick fix once off of her painkillers. So I had to slow her down a little bit and make it a bit more programmed and specific. And a couple of months in, she was just very diligent, military
Yeah.
background, does as she's told. She said, I wouldn't mind losing a little bit of weight as well. So we looked at that and we've worked on that. And we've slowly worked in some more general strength training. And anyway, last week she said, can I get on the machine again? I'm just curious to see the difference. She's lost 7 kilos, but more interestingly, her metabolic age, so she's 63 on the calendar, her real age. Her metabolic age when we started was 76. It's now gone to 52. And so the drop in her fat mass, no loss of muscle mass, but the drop in her fat mass was just astounding. I wasn't expecting it to be as incredible as that. And really, she's done everything at home. She's not bought any special equipment. And it was honestly, I floated home after reading that, because the joy at being able to support somebody to make
Yeah.
such a measurable difference to their health. I mean, I wish in surgery we had more of those metrics to be able to show to people. I mean, we're a bit in the dark ages in
We
primary
are.
care. We're still working with BMI. We get people on the scales. And if you're a muscular athletic person, then just forget whatever the scales or the BMI tells you. But I do think there's a big proportion of people who would be really responsive to that more detailed information about their visceral fat and their body fat. And we just, we get these messages that, oh, it's up to us as doctors to, motivate people. And it is, we should be preaching
Yeah.
these messages, absolutely. But we've got very little by way of tools to be able to educate people.
You're
It would make
absolutely right.
such a difference.
I love data.
Mm,
It gives me so much information from my clients to help support them, but also
mm.
I know what's working. And the data that's available now from just
From a
from
watch.
watching
Mm,
this, yeah, is amazing
mm,
compared to what I have at my fingertips in surgery.
mm,
And you think, how can
mm,
that be?
mm.
How can,
Yeah,
how can medicine be so far
I
behind?
know.
But it really, really helps me understand my client, and it understands, I'm able to look at the data and say, right, you need to take a week off because I can see you're tired. I
Mm,
can see that you're not meeting those marks. I can see what your heart rate's doing. I
mm,
can see how you're sleeping, etc. And all of those metrics feed back into this recipe that allow me to take them to where they
mm,
want to be, and
mm,
allows them to see progression. And again, creatures of habit, we need positive reinforcement.
mm,
We need to know we like to be praised or feel good, and that's why we do bad things. That's why we eat donuts, because
mm,
it feels good. There's an immediate feedback.
mm,
That's why we drink alcohol, because there's an immediate feedback. And in exercise, people, they do feel good, but they also love to know, oh, like you just said, they
mm,
love to see those numbers and they love to see change.
mm,
If you stick to the numbers on the scale, you could be very disappointed.
mm,
I hate when people say, I want to lose weight,
Mm,
you don't want to lose weight. You want to change the way you look and the way you
mm,
perceive yourself. And that's not about the scales.
mm,
Always got to get rid of the scales, because I can change the scales with our diet alone,
mm,
and you will see a drop in that number, but you haven't really changed anything in the long term.
mm,
And we've talked about this before. The diet industry has got an absolutely fantastic business model,
mm,
because you do our diet, you lose weight, you stop the diet, you put weight on,
mm,
and you do this, and you
mm,
do this through life. And actually, each time you do this, it gets harder. So you need to give us more money for us to be able to have the same impact. And what I say to them is, you don't want that. What you want is to do something that is going to make you feel good and stay like this throughout your life and
mm,
feel good about yourself,
mm.
not just a weight on a scale, because that's false data.
Yeah.
And we've got to change the way you perceive that.
Yeah, and most of things that work in this space come back to actually just feeling better about yourself. And when
Yeah.
you really strip it down to what's driving somebody, that's whether you want to feel better about yourself because you know you've accomplished something within a specific event, but it's still that feeling of, yeah, actually, I want to feel fit because it feels nicer than feeling achy and old or flabby around the middle. So it is, and the reasons for that, the pain points that lead into that, are many and varied. But I think getting people to spend a bit of time at the beginning of that journey just to understand that, I think really helps. And I think, yes, people will have different reasons, but then when you drill that down, there's a common theme underneath all of it.
Yeah, indeed. This
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. So how long do you spend with a client? I mean, because you've just recently done a program, haven't you, where you took
Yeah.
clients.
That was a free workshop for 2 weeks to, I guess, to sell to people the notion of weight training and why they need it in their lives. And
Right.
I'm really pleased. It's I think for those that were on the fence, is this for me?
Yeah.
Why do I need to do it? And they've got all these limiting beliefs. There's a number of people who've made contact and want to work with me for a while. I usually get people going on a 6-week plan, not with the promise that you'll drop a dress size or anything like that. It's about laying the foundations. And there are
Yeah.
some people who just need a little bit of fine tuning. Maybe they're already active, but they're floating around the gym and don't know what to do, or they're doing the same DVD or workout at home on a loop and nothing's changing. For those people, sometimes a 6-week starter plan is enough.
Yeah.
Um, some will go on and have another 6 weeks. Some will continue to work with me on a 4 weekly plan, but everything's online. I will design a program that works for that individual, whether they want to train at home, in a gym, a mixture of both, whether
Yeah.
they've got equipment, whether they've not. I think it needs to be a bespoke program for that woman based around what bits of her are hurting or what time she's got. But there's no prescription that can't be adjusted down or up enough to meet someone's needs. And I think for a lot of people, I don't think any of my clients have necessarily worked with a coach before.
Okay.
It can feel like a luxury or an expense that they have to kind of justify. And I'll often say, yeah, but you don't think anything about what you have to spend on the car when it needs a service, and your car is eventually going to be traded in for a newer model. And so I think there's lots of crossover. Women are quite willing to spend money and get their hair done and their nails done and stuff, but there's something about having somebody support you with fitness that I think we're probably a little bit more hesitant. Perhaps it feels a
Yeah.
bit of a luxury, and there's some people that obviously just can't afford it straight away.
Yeah.
That's fine. And I'm in the future want to build up my repertoire of free resources on my YouTube channel that people can dip into. But that's probably the typical starting point. Some people are much further on and get all the usual things that creep in as the weights get heavier, thinking about squatting a certain weight the night before. I've been there and done that. But the beauty is they're all getting the same from it. And I just
Oh,
love it. Absolutely
yeah.
love it. I don't see me doing anything else in the
Right.
future. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And is that I use Training Peaks. So my clients are on Training Peaks, which is
Is
a
that an app?
platform. It's
Right.
an app and a computer website
Mm.
where I put them onto a program, and then they access that wherever they are in the world, and then they can follow the program wherever they are, and
Right.
then they link their watch to the program, and then all that data from their watch measure things like on your bike speed,
Yeah.
etc., all those sort of things comes back to me, and I can see that data on graphs and
Mm.
and, and analyze that, and also it tracks their If they want to, I can track their macros and everything and change their on a diet plan, etc. So it's a sort of full package, if you like. But then a lot of my clients will come in and have testing with me on a one-to-one basis in the gym for me to show progression or to tweak things, or if they're struggling with certain exercises. So it's slightly different to yours, but I think the same sort of thing. I mean, is your platform, is it an app or is it?
No, it's a shared Google spreadsheet, and I use there's form and instructional videos that I clip off of YouTube, most of them through a particular organisation who's Barbell Academy. I'm in Barbell Logic.
Okay,
I'm in their
right.
Barbell Coaching Academy. But then I will encourage them to video themselves, especially if they're in a
Yes.
gym and the weight's getting heavier. And once people have gotten over that, they're usually okay with it. It's a slight feeling of self-consciousness, I think, initially,
Yeah.
because people think you're showing off. But actually in gyms, everybody's filming themselves for a variety of different reasons now. So once they're over that hurdle, that helps us just to keep things moving forward and give form feedback. But yeah, it's all online, and I could put them on a fancy app. I haven't needed to yet. I think the day that somebody says, actually, this spreadsheet thing really isn't working for me, but so far that hasn't happened. And so I
Yeah.
just think I can keep my prices down, the less things that I have to kind of buy in. I get
Yeah.
them to ideally track their food, if not indefinitely, certainly for a week or two, whether that's on my Fitness Pal or NutriCheck or
Yes.
something like that, and then I can just see it without having to send things backwards and forwards. And again, there's rarely anybody that's a major outlier. I can very quickly see where people can clean things up food wise.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about protein. That's probably diet things is a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But at the minute, between those software, I can get people where they need to be, and I check in with them most of the time. I like to know when they're training. I like to follow up, see how it's gone. I like to know if people have got other stuff going on in their life. If they're away for a week, I'll give them the option. Do you want me to program something while you're away, or do you just want to treat that as a natural break? That's the benefit of having a coach. You're outsourcing the thinking. You just have to show up and do what's on the sheet, and that's the beauty of it. If that means that you're just doing 20 minutes that day because it's school holidays and there's a million things going on, 20 minutes it is. It was Jocko Willink, who's very big on the podcast circuit. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. And I remember hearing him say in an advert, some days I have 8 minutes to train, and if it's only 8 minutes, it's 8 minutes. And I thought, yeah, I like that. Yeah. Better to do 8 minutes than no minutes, isn't it?
Yeah. There is a huge amount of data that's saying around how long should you spend training, and the benefits start in the single minutes. The 0 to 9 minute window there is significant data that shows that is very good for you, depending on what you're doing in that time. Procrastinating isn't good for you
unless you do it walking around. I was listening to a good episode. There's another doctor. She's American. She's actually an ENT surgeon, but has clearly gone off and developed an interest in metabolic health. She was on the Huberman podcast. Of course, it was 3 hours long. But she, again, was talking about the benefits of walking for 10 minutes after you eat and the difference and the impact that it makes on your blood glucose. And so I went on the rabbit hole and looked at the data, and I thought, yeah, actually, this makes sense. So if that's all you do for that day is walk for 10 minutes, even if it's around the house, it's still better than nothing. It will still, lighten the load that your liver has to do after you've glugged down a bowl of pasta and a few extra carbs on the side.
That point you made about protein as well, just coming back to that. My whole medical training emphasis around what we learned at medical school was about fat.
Oh, yeah.
And was about sugars, carbohydrates. And, on the preclinical, we did talk about protein and as a building block, et cetera, and I did learn about that. But nobody really talks about protein. And in medicine, nobody really talks about protein until you realize how bloody important protein is.
Yeah.
And actually it is what we should all be talking about is protein and what protein does for us and the need for it in your diet. So I can almost guarantee I've never had a client at the beginning of their journey that is eating anywhere near enough protein to basically survive as they are without going in the wrong direction, let alone go the other way. And it's a huge game changer when I say, right, okay, I want you to have this much protein a day. And they're like, okay. And they go away and they come back and they're like, oh my goodness.
Yes. Yeah.
This isn't bodybuilding numbers.
Yeah.
I want you to have this per day for you to be able to do what I want you to do. And they're like, wow, there is so much protein on my plate.
Yeah.
And actually, not only that, oh, I feel so stuffed. Yeah,
Mm.
they feel so full
Mm.
trying to eat so much protein, and they actually haven't changed their calorie
Yeah.
intake. I'm not asking to eat more calories, but they're getting full so much quicker because they're having to change
Yeah.
the way with the macros.
I said to a client last week, I was looking at her food diary and the protein's still not really coming up. And I said, right, never mind taking stuff away. You can still have those treats that I see you've listed in the snack thing, but hit your protein goal first. And I guarantee the appeal of those sugary sweet things will diminish significantly. So I need to check in this week and see how successfully she's
Yeah,
managed to do that. And then people get drawn into the rabbit hole and the diet wars and all the stuff that bounces around the internet about supplements and things. And again, that's a
it's another
conversation.
topic.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
is.
and these are the sort of things we
Mm,
should come back to in the podcast and talk
mm,
about specifically, because there is a huge number of topics that I think we could really go into in detail. I mean,
mm,
for example, hormones
mm,
and the rubbish that is out there from a hormone perspective, and take this and it'll increase your testosterone, and
mm,
take this and it will do this for you, and it's a metabolic enhancer, blah 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 blah.
mm,
We've really got to sort of unwrap that from a medical perspective and talk about the reality of what hormones do for us, and how we should, if we are taking them, how we
mm.
should be taking them,
Yeah,
and not taking them by needle in the
yeah,
gym
yeah,
changing room
yeah.
necessarily.
That's not a problem I encounter, particularly with my demographic of client, but hormones
Right.
still are very much a hot topic for them.
Yes.
Just not necessarily the sort that you buy on the black market, I would
No.
say.
No. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Let's wrap that up
Yep.
and pencil in a topic for next time.
Yeah.